I was standing next to my father's casket when my world collapsed for the second time in a week. It was a gray morning, the kind that sinks into your bones, and the air smelled like cold earth and wilting roses. People had gathered in quiet clusters, dressed in black, nodding politely. I don't remember half their names. I just remember gripping the folded flag the Marines had handed me and trying not to fall apart in front of everyone. My dad had served, fought hard, lived harder, and died slow. Watching him fade over those last 7 months felt like being peeled apart, layer by layer. I was already broken. That day was supposed to be the goodbye, the final chapter in a long, painful book. And then my phone buzzed. I wouldn't have even checked it, but the name on the screen caught my eye. Jared, my best friend. He wasn't at the funeral. He'd flown home early from work overseas to support me, but a last-minute delay kept him stuck in Denver. I figured it was a message of support, a check-in, something simple, something kind. Instead, it was a screenshot, Rachel's Instagram story, a boomerang video, her on our couch, holding a wine glass, laughing. Buster, our golden retriever, curled up beside her. She wore my old college hoodie. The caption hit like a punch in the chest. Single and ready to mingle to new life, freedom. My mouth went dry. My chest didn't even rise. I read it again, just to be sure it wasn't a mistake. Maybe someone hacked her account. Maybe it was some twisted joke. But I knew better. It was real. I opened our banking app. Instinct, I guess. The savings account was empty. Even the emergency fund was gone. 5 years of setting aside every spare dollar vanished. I called our credit union. She'd transferred everything at 9:06 that morning, 2 hours before the funeral began. I went to find my car. The parking lot was still half full. I'd parked near the far edge, under a dying elm tree, but it wasn't there. No silver Nissan, no Buster barking at the window, just an empty space. I laughed. Not loudly, the kind of laugh you hear in hospitals, after you've cried too much to feel anything else. My sister thought I was losing it. She tried to take my phone. I didn't let her. I just sat down on the little stone bench near the grave. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't call Rachel or demand answers. There was no need. She'd made it loud and clear. She waited until I was at my father's funeral, the one person left in my life who never betrayed me, to take everything and run. I looked at the picture again, our dog, my hoodie, her smug little smile. I stared at that image for a full minute. Then I opened my messages, clicked her name, and typed 4 words. Enjoy it while it lasts. I didn't know exactly what I meant when I sent it. I wasn't threatening her. I wasn't warning her. I was just telling the truth. She thought she'd won. She thought she'd taken everything. But she had no idea what was coming next. After the funeral, people spoke softly to me. Pats on the back. You did your father proud. He's in a better place. Call if you need anything. But all I could hear was that single caption, echoing in my head, like a bell I couldn't unring. Single and ready to mingle. It had been posted while they lowered my father's casket into the ground. The ceremony ended around noon. People drifted away in pairs. My mom stayed behind to place a photo of her and Dad from their anniversary into the flowers. I offered to drive her home, but she saw something in my face and just said, "You need to be alone. I'll ride with Susan." I didn't argue. Jared's rental car, the one he loaned me for the weekend, sat where I left it. I opened the door, sat in the driver's seat, and just stared at the steering wheel. My hands didn't move. My thoughts didn't either. I wasn't numb. I wasn't okay. But I wasn't falling apart either. I drove back to our apartment. No, my apartment now, like a ghost. I knew Rachel wasn't there. She wouldn't return after that post. She'd already disappeared with Buster, the car, and my entire savings. But I needed to see it with my own eyes. The silence of the apartment when I opened the door told me everything. Her shoes were gone, her coat, every trace of her, except the wine glass in the sink. Lipstick smudged on the rim, a half-eaten protein bar on the counter. Buster's bed was gone. So was the toy I gave him on his 5th birthday. He'd loved that stuffed raccoon like it was alive. Now it was gone, just like him, just like her. The living room was quiet. I sat on the couch where she'd posted that video. It was still warm in the cushion. I stared at the spot where she sat, smirking into her phone. Our dog curled up like nothing was wrong. I wasn't angry, not on the surface, but inside. It was like something sharp and electric was crawling under my skin. I didn't punch walls. I didn't yell. That's not who I am. I've never been the guy to lose control. My dad taught me better than that. He always said, your strength is in how still you can stay when the world shakes you. So I stayed still. I made tea. I sat on the porch and watched the wind move through the trees. My hands trembled only once. I thought about everything I'd given Rachel, all the hours I worked overtime to build up our savings, the vacations I passed on so she could have her girls' weekend, the way I held her when her mom passed, the night I proposed, in this very apartment, with candles, and her favorite jazz playing low. 12 years. 12 years I gave her loyalty, comfort, love, and she gave me a caption and a vanished bank account. I didn't know what to do next, but I knew what not to do. I wasn't going to call her. I wasn't going to scream into the phone. I wasn't going to post some emotional rant online, or tell the world what she'd done. She wanted chaos. I wouldn't give it to her. Let her think I was broken. Let her believe she got away clean, that she won. Because in that quiet, something was changing in me. It wasn't rage, it was resolve. She thought I'd fall apart, but all I was doing was getting ready. It's strange how betrayal never really shows up out of nowhere. It leaves clues, hints, glitches in the script you choose to ignore, because you're too busy trying to keep the story together. The first time I noticed something wasn't right was about a year and a half ago. Rachel had started spending more time on her phone, more than usual. She used to be present with me, at least during dinner. We'd cook together, talk about our days. But slowly the conversations turned into her scrolling while I spoke. I'd get halfway through a story about school, a student who made a breakthrough, a parent who sent a thank you email, and she'd be typing away, nodding like she was listening, but her eyes never met mine. One night, I asked her, "Who's so interesting on that screen?" She laughed it off, said it was a group chat. "You wouldn't care," she added, which stung more than I let on. I let it go. I wasn't the jealous type, never had been. Trust was something I gave easily, maybe too easily. Then came the late-night messages. I couldn't sleep one night, maybe around 2:30 a.m. I went to the kitchen for water and saw her on the couch, phone glowing in her hands, smiling. I asked what she was doing, and she flinched, that nervous, guilty kind of flinch. She said she was watching Reel. I sat beside her, and the screen flipped to her homepage before I could see what she was really doing. That night stuck with me, but again, I didn't push. A few weeks later, I did see some. A message popped up while she was showing me a recipe. Just a flash from a guy named Chris. It said, "So when are we doing that wine night again?" She snatched the phone back so fast it was like it burned her. I didn't explode. I just asked, "Who's Chris?" She gave me a half smile. "Oh, he's just a friend. From the gym. It's nothing like that." I didn't believe her, but I didn't accuse her either. Instead, I told myself she was lonely, that maybe I hadn't been around enough since Dad got sick. Between hospital visits, coordinating his care, trying to keep my job together, maybe I had dropped the ball on being a husband. Maybe that's why she was slipping away. So I tried harder. I planned a weekend getaway, booked a little cabin upstate with a view she always said she wanted to wake up to. She canceled last minute, said she needed time alone, that she was feeling emotionally clogged and just wanted to be still. She never used language like that before. Emotionally clogged. Where did that even come from? Around the same time she started talking about finding herself, she started dressing differently, going out more, staying out later. Her stories never quite lined up, but every time I raised a concern, she'd turn it around. "You don't trust me anymore. It's like you're trying to control me. You're smothering me with your sadness." I was ashamed. I backed off. I started thinking I was the problem. The truth? The signs were all there. I just didn't want to admit what I already knew, that she was drifting away and daring me to stop her, that she'd already checked out and was just waiting for a moment when she could justify leaving without looking like the villain. Turns out, Burying my father gave her the perfect cover. She didn't become someone else overnight. She was just finally done hiding it. I always believed betrayal was one act, one moment of weakness, one mistake, one poor decision you catch someone making, and everything crumbles from there. I was wrong. Real betrayal is built like scaffolding. Quiet, layered, hidden in plain sight, and when you finally see it, really see it, you realize it wasn't one bad moment. It was a campaign, a slow dismantling of your trust, orchestrated piece by piece. The morning after the funeral, I woke up in an apartment that didn't feel like mine. My dad was gone. My wife was gone. My dog was gone. And yet everything still looked the same. Coffee mugs in the cabinet. Her scent still on the pillow, like a crime scene that hadn't been cleaned up yet. I made coffee, sat at the kitchen table, and opened my laptop. At first I just wanted to check our joint accounts again. Maybe I'd missed something. Maybe she hadn't taken it all. But when I opened our savings account, the balance was still zero. My heart sank again, even though I knew it would. Then something clicked. I looked at the transaction history, not just from this week but the last 3 months, and that's when the pieces started snapping into place. She'd been draining the account slowly. A few hundred here, 1,000 there, since March. Small enough not to trigger alerts, but consistent, methodical. Each withdrawal labeled something generic like transfer or online purchase, but the totals added up to nearly everything we had. I opened our joint credit card. She'd racked up nearly $8,400 in charges, all in the last 6 weeks. Nail salons, high-end restaurants, jewelry, and a hotel. I clicked on the hotel listing, and my stomach turned. It wasn't even local. It was in Phoenix. I live in Michigan. She had gone on a trip without me, without even mentioning it. I called the hotel and asked if I could verify a reservation under her name. The clerk hesitated, but after a little push and a fake sob I wasn't proud of, he confirmed it. Rachel Cole. 4 nights. Queen Suite. Mid-April. 1 guest. 1 dog. Buster had been there with her while I was bathing my father between chemo sessions. She was sipping cocktails by the pool. I sat back, shaking. I felt nauseous, but not just because of what she did. It was how calculated it all was. She didn't just leave me. She prepared to leave me. She'd scoped it out like a prison break. Not out of fear, but entitlement. She thought she deserved a better life, and she planned mine into the ground to make space for it. Next I checked her email. We still had a shared backup account she never disabled. I'd forgotten about it until that moment. I logged in. Emails from realtor. Subject lines like, lease agreement attached. Photos from the walkthrough. Please sign by May 3rd. She had signed a lease for a condo across town 3 weeks ago. That was 2 days before my dad's final surgery. The one we both knew would likely fail. While I was reading paperwork about ventilators and medical directives, she was signing a lease and booking movers. I found emails to her sister about getting the dog settled, an invoice for a locksmith scheduled the day after the funeral. She even transferred the car title to her name the morning of the burial, while I was reading my father's eulogy. It wasn't one bad moment. It wasn't even personal. She executed my collapse like a to-do list. And that's when something changed in me. Up until that point I still had a sliver of hope she had just panicked, that maybe grief had made her impulsive. But there was no impulsiveness here. This was strategy. She had manipulated every inch of my life while pretending to be my partner. There's a word for people like that. Predator. She didn't just walk away. She waited until I had nothing left to take. There's a moment in every storm when you stop trying to survive the wind and just start studying it. That's where I was. My wife had emptied our savings, stolen my dog, taken my car, and posted her freedom to the world while I stood graveside at my father's funeral. But the worst part wasn't what she took. It was what she calculated. She'd engineered the perfect exit while I was at my most emotionally defenseless. That's not heartbreak, that's war. But I wasn't about to fight her on her terms. I've seen what anger does to people. My dad taught me that. He used to say, anyone can scream. It takes discipline to disappear and make them miss the sound. I finally understood what he meant. So I made a decision. No texts, no calls, no showing up at her condo, demanding answers. That would give her a stage, and she'd love that. No, I would be silent, strategic, focused. I started with what she didn't think I would: the law. I met with a lawyer the next morning, a woman named Dana, a referral from Jared. She specialized in high-conflict divorces and financial abuse cases. I told her everything: the timing, the withdrawals, the forged title, the credit cards, even the hotel in Phoenix. She listened without flinching, took notes like a detective, and said 6 words that changed everything. She left fingerprints on every dollar. Dana explained that Rachel had crossed several legal lines, not just morally but criminally: financial fraud, identity theft, unauthorized asset transfer. If we gathered evidence carefully and moved precisely, we could not only undo what she'd done, we could hold her accountable for every penny. I spent the next week documenting everything: screenshots, bank statements, email threads, social posts, phone records. I didn't confront her. I didn't tip her off. I played dumb, let her think I was licking my wounds, crying into empty furniture. Meanwhile, I was building a case. Jared helped me recover GPS data from my old phone, proving Rachel had taken the car across state lines under false ownership. He also helped me reach out to the local animal control office, where Rachel had filed a false report saying Buster had been abandoned. That's how she got him relicensed in her name. It was petty and cruel, but also illegal. One of the hardest things I did was go back to my dad's storage locker. He'd kept every tax document, every spare check stub, every receipt from his military pension. I needed them to help prove that part of our savings had come from the inheritance he left me just weeks before she emptied it. She hadn't just stolen from me, she'd stolen from a dying veteran's legacy. Dana filed a motion for emergency asset protection. The court moved quickly once they saw the timeline. A freeze was placed on all joint accounts, and Rachel was served with a restraining order, not for domestic abuse, but for financial misconduct. It meant she couldn't touch another dollar without court review, and she had no idea it was coming. I didn't need to scream. I didn't need to get even. I just needed her to feel what she thought I never would: powerless. She tried to call me the night the papers were delivered, left a voicemail crying, confused, angry, said I was blindsiding, said I was attacking her for doing what she needed to do for herself. I didn't respond. She messaged me, "You're being so cold. I just wanted space." I stared at that text for a long time. Then I deleted. That was the night I realized I didn't care if she understood what she'd done. This wasn't about punishment. This was about boundaries, about protecting the version of me I still wanted to become after all of this. The old me would have begged for closure, for honesty. The new me understood that sometimes silence is the only answer people like her deserve. I canceled all joint accounts, had her removed from my healthcare, my lease, my emergency contacts. I changed passwords, notified credit bureaus, blocked her number. I wasn't running from what she did. I was removing every last thread she used to pull me apart. And through it all, I didn't raise my voice once. She thought I would come crawling. She thought I'd beg. But instead I built a wall so high and so silent, the only sound left for her was the echo of everything she lost. They say you don't know what you've got until it's gone. That's not always true. Some people know exactly what they have. They just assume they'll never lose it. Rachel was one of those people. When the police showed up at her condo 3 days after the funeral, she thought it was a mistake. That's what I heard. Anyway, from a mutual acquaintance who lived in the same complex. Apparently she opened the door in yoga pants and a smirk, thinking maybe it was a noise complaint or a package issue. Instead, it was an officer handing her a court order and informing her that the vehicle she was driving, my car, was registered under fraudulent transfer, that the money she'd taken had been flagged as financial misconduct, that a judge had frozen her accounts, and that pending investigation, she was not to sell, move, or alter any property in dispute. I wasn't there. I didn't need to be. The silence I'd kept all week exploded into consequences, one legal form at a time. She called me that night, 5 missed calls, all unanswered. She didn't cry this time. Her voicemails were sharp, angry. She accused me of setting her up, of embarrassing her in front of her neighbors. She called me vindictive, dramatic, and spiteful. She said I was trying to ruin her life. No, Rachel, I was just letting it collapse under the weight of its own lies. By the end of the week, her Instagram was wiped clean. The stories were gone. Her smiling selfies with Buster, deleted. The caption, "Single and ready to mingle," now just a shadow in a few people's screenshots. She tried posting a vague quote, something like, "Sometimes people weaponize the law when they feel powerless." But it didn't land the way she wanted it to. Her comments filled up with questions. What happened to the calm? Why did you delete your last post? Wait, weren't you just celebrating your new place? People started unfollowing. The same friends who toasted her freedom at brunch now had second thoughts. Turns out when you strip a man's life down while he's mourning his father, the internet isn't always so forgiving. Some of them had known my dad. Some had even attended the funeral. And now they were realizing they'd been cheering while she looted the wreckage of a grieving man's life. I didn't say a word publicly. I didn't post my side, didn't defend myself. I didn't need to. Rachel had already written the whole story. She just hadn't read the ending. A week later, she lost the condo, not officially but quietly. The landlord received a legal notice about the fraud complaint and didn't want the trouble. She had 30 days to vacate. Her new life, folded into a few boxes and a borrowed SUV. Then came the custody dispute over Buster. She thought she had it locked in. She'd relicensed him, registered him under her name. But what she didn't count on was that I had adoption paperwork from the original shelter, vet records, microchip info, and 6 years of photo evidence showing I'd been Buster's legal owner since day one. The court ruled in my favor. Within 2 weeks, I got a call from Animal Services. Buster had been dropped off, his tail between his legs, confused but unharmed. When I picked him up, he whimpered the moment he saw me and buried his head into my chest. That was the first time I cried since the funeral. Rachel didn't try to fight it. I think by then she knew. She wasn't winning. The lies were unraveling faster than she could cover them. The car was gone. The money frozen. Her social circle thinning. The condo lost. And now even the dog, the last comfort she took with her, was back in the arms of the man she betrayed. She sent one last text. "I made mistakes, but you didn't have to do this." I read it once, deleted it, blocked the number. That was the end of our story. But the fallout wasn't just about her losing everything. It was about me choosing not to save her. You see, people like Rachel always assume you'll play the same role. The fixer, the forgiver, the man who stays and rebuilds the mess they create. But I was done building someone else's castle while they set fire to mine. She burned the bridge expecting I'd swim after her. Instead, I watched the smoke rise and walked away. Redemption didn't arrive all at once. It wasn't some grand moment where I stood victorious while she crumbled. There was no applause, no celebration. It came quietly, in the smallest of ways, the kind you only notice when your life finally stops screaming at you. The first moment was when I brought Buster home. I'd set up his old bed, his favorite blanket, even put a peanut butter bone next to the door. When I opened the crate, he stepped out slow and cautious. His eyes scanned the apartment. Then, it took him maybe 10 seconds before he made a sound, this little breathy whimper, and launched into my arms like he never wanted to be apart again. I held him there for a long time. Just me and him. No lies, no games. Just something pure and loyal that had finally come home. The next few weeks were quiet. I didn't jump into some new chapter like people love to post about. I didn't announce a comeback. I just lived. I started going on morning walks with Buster. At first they were short, just around the block, coffee in hand. But then I started walking further, exploring parks I never had time for. One day we drove out to a hiking trail my dad used to talk about. I stood at the overlook with Buster beside me, the air cold against my face, and I realized something. I was breathing deeper than I had in months. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't hurting. I was just quiet, whole, free. A few weeks later, I accepted a teaching position in a small town in Oregon. A friend of mine had mentioned the opening months before, but I'd brushed it off. It felt too far, too disruptive. But now, it felt right. A clean slate. I packed up the apartment. No rush, no emotion, just item by item. The only picture I kept of Rachel was one from years ago. Not because I missed her, but because it reminded me of who I used to be before everything cracked. I tucked it into a drawer I rarely open. Moving day came with no fanfare. Just me, a rental truck, and a dog who refused to leave my side. The drive across the country was long but healing in a way I can't quite explain. I played my dad's old road trip playlists, stopped at diners, took photos at gas stations like I was 20 again. When I arrived in Oregon, the air felt different, clean, still, the kind of place where no one knows your past, and they don't need to. I found a small rental house at the edge of town. Nothing fancy, but it had a fenced backyard and a porch where I could drink coffee at sunrise. My students didn't know what I'd been through. To them I was just Mr. Cole, the new literature teacher with a golden retriever who sometimes sat by the classroom window after school. I started volunteering at the local shelter, joined a hiking group, even made friends at the local bookstore, where I now host a monthly poetry night. People began to see me for who I really was, not for what I'd lost. And that was the redemption, not revenge, not a takedown, just rebuilding a life that no longer depended on someone else's approval or attention. A life rooted in my values, in quiet strength, in peace. Rachel didn't follow me. She didn't matter anymore. I didn't move on to forget her. I moved on to remember who I was before her. People ask me sometimes, people who've heard pieces of the story, how did you not lose your mind? Or how didn't you lash out? And for a long time, I didn't know how to answer that. Now I do, because I didn't win by getting even. I didn't win by watching her fall. I won because I walked away and never looked back. When someone you love betrays you so deliberately, especially when you're already broken, there's a natural instinct to scream, to fight, to demand the universe correct the injustice. But the truth is, the universe doesn't owe you balance. People will walk away clean sometimes. They'll lie and smile and be applauded for it. But that applause doesn't last. Character always catches up to consequence, not because someone chases them, but because eventually the mask gets too heavy to hold up, and the people clapping start to see what's underneath. Rachel taught me that, not with words but with the silence that followed her choices. You see, I didn't need to tell the world what she did. I didn't need to defend myself. I just needed to live a life that made her irrelevant, and that's what I did. Looking back, I realize I spent too many years trying to earn love from someone who was keeping score. Every gesture had to be big enough, thoughtful enough, impressive enough to meet some invisible standard. And when it didn't, she withdrew, withheld, shifted the blame onto me. What I learned is that when love is conditional, it's not love at all. It's a transaction. And the moment you stop paying, they call you the villain. But I'm not a villain. I'm not a victim either. I'm a man who survived being emotionally robbed and still had enough left in me to rebuild. That's not weakness. That's strength of a kind I didn't know I had until she tried to destroy it. I don't hate Rachel. Not anymore. She's not a monster. She's a person who made selfish choices, who prioritized fantasy over commitment, attention over integrity. Her life became about the highlight reel, not the reality. But I played a role in it too. I allowed my silence to be interpreted as approval. I ignored red flags because I wanted to believe loyalty could fix disloyalty. That's the real lesson. Love can't fix character. You can love someone deeply, fully, completely, and it still won't make them honest, faithful, or kind. If they aren't those things when you meet them, your love won't grow it into them. That's something they have to choose on their own. And if they don't, you'll spend years bleeding just to keep them warm. So what's the legacy of all this? It's not about it's not about the police or the money or the condo or even the dog. It's about who I became on the other side of it. I became a man who sets boundaries, who values peace over performance, who doesn't explain himself to people committed to misunderstanding him. I became a man who believes that leaving quietly can be the loudest thing you ever do. Strength isn't in the roar, it's in the restraint. When Rachel left, she thought I'd fall apart, and for a while I did. quietly, privately, the way most men are taught to do. But then I stopped trying to glue the old pieces back together. I let the broken parts stay broken, and I started building something new. Not tougher, not colder, just real. There's a moment I return to often. It was about 2 months after the dust settled. I was sitting on the porch in Oregon, Buster at my feet, coffee in hand, the sunrise pouring over the fence line. No sound, no texts, no drama, just stillness. I remember thinking, this is what healing feels like. Not fireworks, not a big speech, just the quiet knowing that your life is finally yours again. No one can take that from me now. Not Rachel, not anyone. And if you've been where I've been, if you've watched someone walk away with pieces of you and smile while they did it, I hope you know this. You don't need revenge. You don't need the last word. You just need to survive long enough to remember who you are. The rest will come. Let them post. Let them pretend. Let them win the short game. Because in the long run, truth doesn't need defending. It just needs time.